Moving forward and transition after the loss of a loved one can be really tough. So, I'm here to talk with you about how to make that happen and tips to make that transition easier. Hi, I'm Dr. Kristie Overstreet, psychotherapist and clinical sexologist, and I'm happy you're here with me to talk about this really important topic. And thanks to Mad Men Marketing for seeing the importance, especially for mental health awareness. I know personally how hard it is to think about how to move forward after someone passes, but we have to keep living regardless of how we're feeling. So in this video today, I'm going to be sharing three parts. First, we're going to talk about the 4 transitions with grief, how to combat guilt if that comes up after someone passes away, and then tips for staying connected to your loved ones as you transition and move forward. Let's start out by looking at grief as many different transitions. You know, if you've seen the previous videos, we talk about the stages of grief and the phases of grief. Today, I want you to think of it as transitions. So you got to give yourself grace and time to work through each of these. Let's start with the first transition. This is usually when we accept that someone we love is gone. This may sound easy, this idea of acceptance, but if you're anything like me, you've lost people to death and you know accepting the reality is really hard. This takes time as you move through all the different emotions and feelings that come up as you work towards acceptance. After the first transition comes a second transition. This is where we work through the emotions of pain of grief. You have to go through it to get on the other side of it, meaning that if you're an avoider or a stuffer and stacker and you think just tucking it away is going to work, it's not. You got to experience the pain and the reality of the loss because you're going to have to face it at some point. If not, it's going to come out in many different ways. I want you to allow yourself to go through it at your speed and don't compare yourself to others about how they're processing it. Even though you've accepted the loss and you know that they're gone, you're still going to have waves of emotions that come up and they must be worked through. I want you to know that you're not alone and to reach out to a friend, support, therapist, healer, or someone in your community that you can trust and get that support that you need. After you've gone through the second transition comes the third transition. And this is when we adjust to being without our loved ones. Of course, there's never a substitute for him and her in our lives, but we have to learn to live with this loss. Decisions will have to be made about how to meet the responsibilities this person had. This adjustment looks different for each person, even in the family system. For example, your loved one may have been the one who handled the finances or took care of certain things around the home, or they may have been the one in the family who organized all the activities. Or if your loss is a friend, they may be the one that gets everybody together and plans all the events. Know that it's going to take time to go through each of these transitions and adjusting to being without them. Now, for the last transition, the fourth one, you need to find an emotional place for your loved one that allows you to continue to live with a new normal. You still will feel a connection with them, but you want to be able to invest in other relationships as well. This does get easier with time, but it does not mean that the loved one that's deceased, you love them any less or that you need to or should forget about them. That's not the case at all. Everyone has a different timeline with their grief of what to expect and how it happens. I want you to think about finding that emotional place to keep them as you continue to move forward. Grief is not a straight linear process of moving forward. You're going to have to cope with the difficult emotions as you move through the shock, denial, and acceptance of the reality. And it's okay if you get stuck in one of these transitions. You may be able to move forward with one and the other one you go back to or stay stuck in it. This is normal. Now, if you feel guilt about something involving your loved one after they've passed, let's talk about how to handle that. You can expect to feel sadness, feeling upset when someone you care about passes away. And many of the feelings just come up out of the blue, and feeling guilty is one of them. It's normal to feel guilt when someone dies. You may feel guilty because that you could have done something differently to prevent the person from dying. You may wish that you had said or done something differently while they were alive, or feeling guilty that you didn't do something at all. You can also feel guilty that you're alive and that person's not. These feelings of guilt and regret may be particularly strong if you had a difficult relationship with that person when they pass away. We have to remember that guilt is a powerful emotion. It can feel really heavy and hard to handle. Holding on to guilt and these kind of emotions can be exhausting and they create a lot of problems going forward. It can be helpful to let things out. Even though it's not going to disappear right away, the intensity will go down with time. I know through my own personal experience with the death of several family members and my best friend I grew up with, I felt guilt with each death, such as why didn't I spend enough time with them? Why didn't I reach out soon enough? What could I have done or said differently to have a better relationship? That's just a couple of examples, and you probably have your own. So I want you to know that guilt is normal. So here are a couple of specific tips that's going to help you work through this guilt. I want you to write out the completion of these following sentences. So you're going to think of these as regrets or things that you feel guilty about. Here's the three. The first one's, I could have blank. So I want you to fill that in with any regrets or guilt you have. The second is, I would have blank, such as I would have spent more time or I would have called more frequently. The third is, I wish I blank. This could look like, I wish I had told them how much I cared about them or how much I love them more often. I want you to write these out. And when you do, try sharing them with someone that you trust. It can be helpful in the letting go process of this. Then I want you to think about, what would your loved one think if they knew you were feeling so guilty and carrying around this heavy burden? As time passes, you still may experience this grief, but this intensity of pain and guilt will lessen. You'll know you're feeling better when there are more good days than bad. And remember, on those bad days, it's all right to reach out for that support. Now that we've covered the 4 transitions, how to handle feelings of guilt so you can transition going forward, I want to cover 10 tips to help you stay connected with your loved one that's passed on. I want you to think of this as how you're going to continue that bond. Number 1, talk to them. It's okay. This does not make you crazy. So talk away, whether it's out loud or in your head, or maybe you write. It's a common way we continue those relationships with our loved ones. Number 2, write letters to the person you lost. You can do this in a journal or actually letter. There's all kinds of things out there to help you do this, or you can just do it from scratch. Write out a letter to them as if you were going to send that to them. You can keep those letters or you can get rid of them. You can do whatever you need to do with these writings to help you heal and move forward. Number 3, keep photos of this person around. It might seem really obvious. Of course, you're going to keep those photos, but some people might feel uncomfortable about keeping them. So you have to decide what you need to do. If you have someone in the house that's uncomfortable and you want to keep them, keep them. You got to do what's best for you with your grief. Number 4, incorporate your loved ones into events and special days that's happening, whether it's leaving an empty chair at the table to help honor them on holidays, or discuss with your family or share memories, or take a time of silence on those big days and events, or talk about happy memories about previous events on those days. This will help you stay connected. Number 5, imagine what advice they would give you when you're trying to make difficult decisions or tough decisions. Big decisions can be really overwhelming. And when you've lost a person that you would have talked to, it can be really hard. Imagine that conversation with them. What would they have said? What advice would they have given? This can definitely help stay connected. Number 6, live your life in a way that you know they're going to be proud of, whether it was a spouse, parent, best friend, child, loved one, grandparent, whoever it is. You know they're missing these accomplishments and these milestones coming up in your life. Take time to recognize them and remind yourself how proud they would be if they were here. Number 7, finish a project they were working on, whether it's around the house or something creative they were doing, or maybe they were a coach or volunteer. Go ahead and get involved in that activity or in that event. It's going to help you learn more about what they loved and enjoyed, as well as staying connected to them afterwards. Number 8, take a trip they've always wanted to take. This might sound sad or depressing because you think, wait a minute, why would I want to go there and they did and they didn't get to? Death can make us realize that life is really short. We may feel inspired to go travel and do more, enjoy the quality of our lives. And if they wanted to go there, why not go and connect with them at that place? Number 9, plan for the anniversary of their passing. It might feel like everyone's moved on, so don't feel shamed or embarrassed that you recognize the anniversary of their passing. Maybe it's anniversary of their birth or any other special day that they really loved. Make it special for you and for them. Number 10, one of my favorite, experience your loved one's presence. It's really common to experience and feel them around you at different times. It might be a feeling, it might be the wind blowing, it may be a bird that lands on your doorstep. Whatever it is, look at it as a sign of your loved one's presence being there. You know that it's hard enough being without them, so they will try to contact you in different ways. And knowing their presence is there can be very calming. Remember that our mental health is just as important as our medical health. If you were seeking guidance from your doctor on diabetes, blood pressure, or cancer, any other type of health concerns, you would make it a priority. And that's what I want you to do with your mental health. Whether it's grief that you're dealing with, depression, transition, whatever's happening for you in that space, I want you to know it is okay to seek help. Do what you need to do to take care of you. And I wish you the best as you continue to transition through this difficult time.